Hey guys, welcome to episode number 547. Today is Monday, so it's Update Monday, and today I thought I would take you guys along for a day in the life of Greg's Fish Room, a day in the life of my aquarium box. We've got a lot of exciting things going on today. It's gonna be a packed schedule, so let's get started. First thing is always a trip to the post office to drop off all of our shop.myaquariumbox.com orders. Lots of fun stuff to get through there. So let's get that out of the way and then we'll continue on with the day. All right, that is the post office done. Now, we've got a lot to do today. The first thing we're gonna do is go over to Uncle Ned's Fish Factory. That's a local fish store in my area, actually one of the few that's left in business. And we're gonna check out some of the floating plants, some of the pond plants. It's been a week since that greenhouse has been set up. Those tubs have been full of water. Now I wanna try to introduce some pond plants into those tubs to see how they do, see if there's enough sunlight to grow those plants, and just test out different pond plants, a different plant in each tub to see if it gets enough light. That way I'll know what plants to get next year so that I can start off the year really quickly. So let's drive over to Uncle Ned's and see what they've got for sale. Alright guys, we have arrived at Uncle Ned's Fish Factory. It's fairly large building. It's got an indoor area and then an outdoor area for pond stuff. And what I'm looking for here is a number of different varieties of pond plant, and I'm sure they're gonna have it. And we'll just see what they've got before we decide on what we're gonna take home. I think this is water hyacinth, which is one of the items I'm looking for. We're gonna skip over lilies for now. I just think they're a little bit too big for what we're looking for. We've got some nice sized koi ponds in here. Kind of hard to see what's inside. Some more bog plants. And we got some baby koi. And those don't look like goldfish. Those look like cichlids of some sort. Most of the ponds seem relatively lightly stocked. It's probably because we're reaching the end of pond season. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to reorder stuff if no one's coming in to buy it. So other pond plants we're looking for would be some water lettuce, potentially some frog bit. Actually, here's a piece of water lettuce right there. So water hyacinth, water lettuce. If we could find some frog bit, that would be cool. We've got duckweed here. I'm actually gonna get some duckweed as well. Here's the water lettuce. Nice big tub full of water lettuce. So we'll definitely get those three. We can find some frog bit as well. I think that would be good. Yeah, it looks kind of like duckweed, but it's bigger. So many outdoor ponds. It's kind of cool how some of these cascade, right? You've got some that are higher up, and then they've got this overflow. Like there's a screen, and then overflows into the next pond. Pretty cool. Lots of ponds out here. I wish I could get more video of the fish inside them, but it's just that time of year. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Alright, so here's the first pond plant that we are definitely picking up. This is water hyacinth, and it looks like there's sort of like a shorter form here that has the leaves really close and compact against the side of the plant, and then there's sort of a longer form here where these stems get really long. I don't know if it's just because it's trying to reach the light or if it's like a slightly different variety, but I think what I'm going to do is get like 5 of this size plant, and we'll throw that in one of the tubs in the greenhouse and see how those do. All right, mission complete at Uncle Ned's Fish Factory. We got 2 big bags of pond plants. Let's get these guys home and get them in the tubs in the greenhouse. All right, guys, and we are back home and back in the greenhouse, and a lot has changed in here since I last showed this a week ago. So let's just talk about what we've got in here before we get around to the floating plants. So I went ahead and picked up 4 plastic pallets last week, and I propped those up on some cinder blocks to allow me to put all of our hardscape materials on this side of the greenhouse. Now this process has just started. Half of this stuff isn't even up on the website yet, but it is a work in progress. And essentially what we have going here is a couple pallets of driftwood and a couple pallets of aquascaping stone. We got a lot of Malaysian driftwood over here. We got sort of the extra large, the large, and the medium size pieces here. A lot of really great stuff. I wanted to see how this stuff did in the humidity of the greenhouse before putting this stuff up for sale. I also need to weigh it and measure it and figure out you know, what size package it needs to go in. So this stuff will be up on shop.myaquariumbox.com soon. Pretty excited about that. Moving over here, we've got a lot of maple stone. This stuff just went up on the website a week or 2 ago, and I love this stuff. Essentially, what I've done here is I went ahead and picked up a whole lot of milk crates. These things can hold 40 to 50 pounds worth of material, and I thought it was a great solution to sort of compartmentalize all of the different aquascaping stone that we're going to have available here. So this stuff is roughly broken up into like the large chunks, the medium chunks, and then some of the smaller chunks. And whenever we put a package together, we can fit like 20 pounds of aquascaping stone in a flat rate box. And so I try to pick like 1 large stone, a couple medium sized stones, and then a couple smaller sized stones to get to that 20 pounds. But anyways, this is sort of the selection. This stuff is really cool. If you go watch a video from Peck Tech about a year ago from the Aquatic Experience, he put together a really cool tank. It was in the aquascaping contest, the plant to tank contest, and he used stuff very similar to this. Essentially, it's like a red stone. It's sort of like an orangey red stone, and it's got these white veins in it, and it's really cool. It's got a lot of character, and the thing I love the most about this stuff is it contrasts. It's probably one of the best stones to contrast against your green plants in your aquascape. So really cool stuff there. We got a lot of it available. Moving over here, we've got some dragonstone. This stuff is really popular. We got some very large pieces on top. We got some medium-sized pieces down below. You can't see them. Sort of trying to stack these so I can get as much in here as possible. So we got dragonstone here. This stuff has a ton of character. It's got these pits in it, and it's got this sort of like pattern, like this sort of like striated pattern, and it comes in a number of different colors, but it's usually like an orangey, tanny sort of color, and this stuff really pops when it's underwater. It's got a lot of sort of like horizontal or vertical momentum to the rock, so it makes a really good stone to make a really stunning aquascape. This stuff is in short supply. It's kind of hard to get your hands on, and so we've got a bunch of that as well. You need to start boxing that up. And then we've got Soryu Stone, and this stuff is awesome as well. It's sort of it's chunkier, it's a lot denser than some of the other stones we just looked at, but this stuff makes a really good aquascape as well. And so we've got plenty of big chunks of that available as well. Anyways, that's sort of the plan with this side of the greenhouse, is just to load this full of driftwood and stone and start to pack that up and get it shipped out. So if you want to check out some of this stuff, you can go to shop.myaquariumbox.com. Always trying to increase our selection. If you guys have any suggestions for driftwood and stone that you want to see, please let me know. We're always looking to expand. We do have some spider wood. It's not moved out here yet. I'm still just about halfway done moving stuff out here. So this is what's out here so far, and we'll keep adding to it over time. We got the mats in. I really like these rubber mats. It makes walking up and down this aisle really easy. And in terms of this rack for the 60-gallon Laguna tubs, I waited a week to see if there was going to be any bowing here of these 2x6s, and I haven't really noticed any. So I think I'm ready to start stocking these ponds. I have not gotten the bulkheads for these yet. The tank, the big 1,000-gallon tank that's going in the giant hole back here, it has arrived. I just haven't gone to pick it up yet. So that will be a project for a different day. But once that gets in the ground, once I get some solar set up and some battery banks in here, I want to get a DC pump to pump water from that big 1,000-gallon pond up into these tanks, and eventually we'll get these all hooked up with bulkheads and overflows, and get the whole thing cycling, get the fish down in the big tank, get all of our plants up here, and actually do some aquaponics. But for now, as I've said, these are just individual tubs, and I want to see which of these pond plants are able to survive. Both survive in terms of the amount of sunlight they're getting, and also survive in terms of overwintering. I know some of these will overwinter, I know others will not. I want to see which ones are going to be viable for this location, for this greenhouse. We are in the Northeast, so it does get very cold here, and these ponds will probably be drained almost completely for the winter season. And I'm not 100% sure if this greenhouse location is going to get enough sunlight to grow all of these plants. So let's talk about what we got at Uncle Ned's in terms of floating plants. This first one is water lettuce, and this is the one that I am probably most concerned about surviving. Water lettuce needs a lot of direct sunlight. It also needs a lot of nutrients in the water, and that combination means that this is probably going to be one of the most demanding plants. And this stuff will go yellow, it will melt back, it won't regrow, it won't shoot off runners if it's not getting enough sunlight and enough nutrients. You can see it's got very long roots, a very large root structure here with a lot of rootlets, and those will suck up all the nutrients in the water. So I may need to get like a bag of garden soil and just like put it in a big filter sock or something and stick it in the corner just to get some nutrients going in these tanks. But for now, they're in here. We'll see how they do. Moving right along, we have our next tub, and this tub has water hyacinth. This stuff is probably one of my favorite pond plants because if you do it right, this stuff explodes. It grows so incredibly fast. It is ridiculous, and it's like, you know, it's hard to get rid of. It's hard to give away. It's hard to throw away. It grows so fast as long as it's growing under the right conditions. So I don't think this needs quite as much sunlight as the water lettuce, and it does have, again, a very robust root structure that's absolutely crazy, and it is going to need a lot of nutrients. Obviously, fish and fish waste and fish food and all of that stuff will help in growing these guys, but I feel like I'm not going to be able to put that volume into these tubs quick enough to keep these things alive. So as long as it's getting enough sunlight, as long as I can throw some dirt in the corner, hopefully there's enough nutrients in the water, moving around in the water, that these guys will hang on and thrive. So I would be super excited if this stuff was able to survive through the winter. Next up, we have a sensitive plant. Actually, we've got two of them. They're really cool. They sort of grow on these root stalks. So there's one here, and then there's another one here. It's sort of this orange-yellow root stalk. And then it sends off these side shoots of roots underwater so that it can suck up plenty of nutrients. And then these sort of orange stems grow with all of these nice little green leaves, and those just sort of continue on, branch off, and hopefully soon these will cover the entire surface of the water here. So I'm really excited to see if this survives. I think this is a little bit more delicate of a plant, but I think under the right circumstances this stuff may survive over winter as well. So if that happened, I would be super excited. This stuff has a lot of character, and I'm really excited to see how this stuff does. You know, I've never kept this before, but already I really like it. So we'll see how it does. All right, next up, we've got what appears to be a giant duckweed. And it's really hard to know exactly what this stuff is, but it certainly is different than your typical duckweed. It is quite a bit larger. It's like 4 times as big, but it is not frogbit, and I was not able to find frogbit. That's the one floating plant that was missing from my trip to Uncle Ned's this time. I'm sort of past the prime pond season, so I just sort of had slim pickings, whatever was left over. So this stuff is definitely larger than your traditional duckweed. In fact, you can see a few small pieces of duckweed in there to compare it to the large stuff. So what I've done is I just sort of stuck it in this floating basket. I want to see if I can contain the smallest floating plants. You know, the water lettuce and the water hyacinth, it's big enough that if it's overcrowding a tub, I can just grab it and pull it out. This stuff, I want to see if I can contain it to just a small floating basket and let that fill out, just so it doesn't get all over the place, just so it doesn't start going down the overflows and getting places that I don't want it to be. So I've got one basket of the giant duckweed, and we'll see how that does. Then we've got 2 floating baskets of regular duckweed, and I'm already sort of resigned to the fact that this stuff is going to get all over the place. You can see it's already in the tub itself, so the only way I'm really going to get rid of this is with a net and scoop it out, or throw a couple goldfish in here or something like that, koi. I'm sure they'll eat it up as well. So right now this tank is just going to be a disaster, and it's just going to be full of duckweed. I'll see if I can contain it to these floating baskets, and we'll see how it does. But this stuff is like impossible to kill. It doubles in size like every single day. It's absolutely crazy. Great plant to have. I know a lot of people get annoyed at having duckweed in their aquariums indoors, but I think it's a great thing to have out in a small pond like this. So I'm excited to see how well this stuff does. I have no doubt this is the stuff that's going to take over every single one of these tubs, whether or not I want it to. It's just the thing that's going to happen, so I'll just have to live with it. Next up, we have 2 tubs here. We got 2 floating baskets, and this is Guppy Grass. This is something that can be definitely grown in an aquarium. I don't have a whole lot of luck at growing plants indoors in my aquariums, so I thought I would get a small portion of Guppy Grass here. I think, you know, it's not like a true floating plant, like the leaves floating on the surface, but it does get rather large, and it is a really good plant for breeding and for breeding purposes. So if I have some small fish out here like endlers or guppies or whatever, this is the stuff that's going to provide them the most cover for breeding. So I thought I'd get a little bit of it here, just throw it in this basket to see how it does. Again, I don't know if it's going to get enough sunlight, but we'll see how it does. It's certainly nice and green right now, so we'll know relatively quickly whether or not it's getting what it needs to survive. And then this here is just sort of an unidentified floating plant that they had in one of their tanks in the store. It could be like a form of Azolla or something else. It's not quite a red root floater or something like that. Again, not really sure what this is. It may or may not be an invasive plant, so I will need to look more into this before, you know, I decide to start growing this stuff out. It may be one of those things that I just need to destroy instead of let propagate in a system like this. So anyways, guys, that's what's floating in these tubs right now. We'll see how it does. We'll see which ones grow, which ones thrive, and which ones die back. I mentioned a solar system and a battery system. One thing I do want to add to these tubs is a source of air and water movement. And I came across these A pumps, which are basically a small, silent aquarium air pump. And I thought they were really cool from Aqualighter. So this is it here. It's just got a little suction cup. Great for your small tanks. And it just sort of vibrates just a little bit. You can't even hear it. I'm sure you've seen similar air pumps to these before. These are great if you have basically just one tank and you want one air stone. These are a really good solution. But the reason I have it out here, and the thing that I'm going to experiment with once I get that battery system in, I want to see if I can basically hook up all of these air pumps, one of these A pumps in each one of these tubs, to provide just a little bit of aeration, a little bit of water flow. And the reason I've selected this is because it has such a low power consumption. It's 1.8 watts to run one of these things. And so I figure if I can get a battery, like a DC battery, an inverter, and then plug all of these in, I could have like a marine deep cycle battery, and I could run basically all 6 of these for weeks straight without having to recharge that battery. And if I get a couple batteries in a battery bank right here and connect that up to a solar panel system outdoors, which may happen next year, then I could run this stuff indefinitely. I can run the DC pump in the big tank. I can run all of the air in here. I can install lights if I need to provide, you know, supplementary light if I need to. All kinds of fun stuff becomes a possibility. So that's the stuff that's going on in the greenhouse right now. More to come on this stuff. I need to head indoors to jump on a conference call for business for my aquarium box, and then we'll move on to the next part of our day. All right, guys, the meeting went very well, and as you may be able to see behind me, we are now at U-Haul. We're gonna pick up a truck. We have a few thousand boxes to pick up, my aquarium boxes. Every couple months, we gotta go pick up a load of boxes and bring them to Mike's basement. So that's what I'm up to now. I'm gonna pick up the truck, drive it over to the box company, pick up the boxes, drive it over to Mike's house, unload the boxes into his basement. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Let's get going. All right, we have arrived at the box manufacturer. Just waiting for them to load up the U-Haul. I wish I could take you inside the facility, but I guess they've got some proprietary stuff in there, and they don't like anything being filmed. So we're just waiting for the boxes to come down the ramp into the U-Haul, and then we'll get back on the road and drop these suckers off. running a small business is easy. You're wrong. This is what a box looks like when it comes fresh off the press. Pretty exciting. Mike's gonna build a whole bunch of these, I'm sure, and then they will be shipping out to you guys the middle of every month. All right, and we are finally back home. It has been a very busy day. I'm spending the rest of the afternoon outdoors with Polly Dog. How you doing, doggy? She's been in her crate for most of the day, so now we get to spend some outdoor time sniffing around. Maybe we'll go for a walk. But yeah, really busy day. I mean, this is the life of Greg's Fish Room. This is the life of my aquarium box. Every day is something new, a little something different, but there's always something to do. So, you know, I think we were successful in getting some floating plants at Uncle Ned's Fish Factory. It was good to get all those boxes picked up and dropped off at Mike's house. And I have been doing a little R&D on a product that we're designing. It's not anything revolutionary, but here's sort of a prototype. Not quite sure if this is 100% done yet, but I wanted to play around with bamboo more. We've done bamboo products in the past, like bamboo caves and whatnot, bamboo hides, but I haven't done anything sort of vertical yet, so I wanted to play around with that. Bamboo, in my opinion, is sort of, it's one of those products that isn't really used heavily in the aquarium industry, and I want to try to change that. I mean, I'm not quite sure why, but I think it's a great material. You know, it's relatively low cost. It's you know, very renewable product, and I think it looks cool, and every piece is a little bit different. But essentially what we have here is just sort of like a shrimp tower, if you will. And I got a few different sizes. Here's sort of a larger one with a hole cut in. There's a slightly smaller one. But bamboo it's one of those products that floats for quite a while. It's got to sort of reabsorb moisture before it will sink, and that could take weeks, depending on, you know, the piece of bamboo that you have. And you know, it's funny. Like I had some bamboo sort of laying around, and I started playing around with it. Some of it is like 6 months old or so at this point. And I noticed that the longer pieces of bamboo that have been sitting around have cracked. And that's a natural part of the drying process of bamboo, but obviously it's not very nice if it's, you know, a product that you're buying or something that you're trying to keep in your aquarium or whatnot. But this is what happens when bamboo completely dries out. A lot of times it does crack. And so I've been trying to figure out ways around that. You know, I don't want to invest too heavily in a product that's going to fall apart over time, you know, like sitting on a shelf or whatnot. So, you know, I've been waiting. I've been sort of holding on to this stuff to see what would happen. And it seems like the longer pieces of bamboo, anything that's, you know, 12 inches or longer, it seems like over time, most of it does crack like this. But just sort of out of curiosity, I had cut some pieces down to smaller sizes, and anything that was around, I don't know, like 4 inches, anything like less than 6 inches, for whatever reason, most of it didn't crack. It stayed intact, and I'm not quite sure why that is. It's sort of been kept in the same location. It's just a different length. You know, it didn't really seem to matter the diameter of the bamboo. as long as it wasn't too long, it didn't seem to crack at all, which is kind of strange. Maybe it's because some of those pressures of the drying process are sort of released when you cut on both ends. That could be part of it, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So something to play around with, something I will continue to look for. But yeah, so this is sort of the idea that I had, is wouldn't it be cool if shrimp could have their own little house, their own little tower to hide in. I think something like this would look really cool in like a nano-sized tank or a planted tank, sort of sitting back. You could have some, like, you know, plants in front, some plants in back, and something like this sitting right in the middle, I think would look really cool. So I took some small pieces of tile, natural stone tile, as a base for these, just so that these could sink immediately. And so I'm just going to continue to play around with this until I'm happy with it, and until it works. So anyways, guys, that's sort of what's going on. I may start a fire here tonight. We've got plenty of pallets and wood to burn. I think it's been a very busy and successful day. Next week, we are going to tackle the 1,000 gallon tank. It's a poly tank, plastic tank, aquaculture tank. It is the thing that's gonna sit in the ground behind the greenhouse. Super excited to set that up. It has come in. All I have to do is go and pick it up and then set it up. So that is the goal for next week. If you liked this style of video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you like sort of this long, rambly, vloggy type content. It does take quite a while to put together, but it is sort of nice to see bits and pieces of my day. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.